Howdy, Michael here. One of the things I want to do over this year with this challenge is talk a little bit about the content I enjoy, because I think one of the things I love the most is sharing books, movies, TV shows, video games, whatever it is, with other people and having them enjoy it too. There's something really rewarding about that. And so, what I want to share today is this book I've been reading recently, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I finished it about a week or two ago, and I think it's probably one of the best reading experiences I have had in a long time. I first got into Brandon Sanderson when I was reading The Wheel of Time a couple of years ago. I had read it when I was in middle school, but kind of fell out of it about halfway through. And then with the pandemic, there was nothing else to do, so I decided to read through the entire thing. And I'd always known that Brandon Sanderson finished the final 3 books because Robert Jordan died. And I was stunned by how seamless the transition was and how well the ending was handled. And so I read these books and I was like, I really want to read more Brandon Sanderson. So I picked up Mistborn, one of his other trilogies, and loved it. It was amazing the way in which he handled the really deep and interesting magic system, the fascinating characters and their interactions, the cool cultures. And I read it and absolutely enjoyed it. And so I bought The Way of Kings because I heard the Stormlight Archive was excellent. And I looked at this book, and I've read a lot of long books, but you look at the book and it is incredibly thick. It's a big book, a big commitment. And so it took me a while to actually be able to dedicate some time to sit down and just read it. And the prologue's excellent. But as soon as I got to Kaladin, our first main character that you see the POV of, I was instantly hooked. One of the things I love most about the book, I think, are the characters, that of Kaladin, Shallan, Adolin, and Dalinar. I think Kaladin specifically, who we see most of the book from, is fascinating to me. He reminds me a lot of Guts from Berserk, especially in how his journey progresses. Kaladin's arc is fascinating. It goes through someone who has achieved something, who has this kind of found family, this troop of people, to losing everything and going to the point where literally there's nowhere further down he could go. Every single part of him that is good is stripped away to this point where he has nothing. And in a different story, I think this kind of darkness would be overwhelming, but what makes The Way of Kings so compelling, I think, especially in his story, is his companion being Syl, this small creature, this small spren that brings him light, literally, but also this sense of joy and hope that pervades through his entire narrative, throughout the entire thing. And their relationship and how through her he's able to grow and become a better character and become a leader to these people that have nothing, I think is one of the greatest arcs I've read in a while. And it's incredibly compelling. And I think that's what makes each character in this story compelling to me. Because what Brandon Sanderson has done is he's distilled leadership and this idea of how do we portray ourselves to those around us. And I think that's why each character is interesting to me. They each analyze this idea of identity and truth through a different lens. With Kaladin's story, he's trying to lead men who literally have nothing. They have nothing to live for, nothing to continue. How do you make them care about a life that has no substance to it? While you have Dalinar, on the other hand, who his goal is he's trying to lead men who have everything. They have excess, they have wine, money, food, anything they could want. How do you get them to care about things? I think that's what makes it compelling. You have characters at the bottom and at the top, and you look through both of their perspectives. And then you have a character like Shallan, who's in the middle, sort of. She also is trying to put on a face to be able to portray her cause, to be able to get in with Jasna, and so she's lying in some ways. And I think what makes her so compelling is the way in which she grows as a character, is she learns to be more true to herself and like actually do what she wants to do. Because her arc of growing and growth is compelled through this idea of embracing the things she wants versus the duty that she feels she must have to be able to steal, to be a thief, to steal this thing from Jasna. And I think that's what makes this story great. It's about characters and their relationships with each other at the very core. And even though it is this epic tale of this magical world that I think is so fascinating, and how it takes a medieval setting and twists it with the storms and the ways in which these creatures have evolved to live in this ecosystem that is so vastly different than any other narrative I've read, with, you know, everything being crustaceans and crabs and shells, and how the plants retract when you walk over them because they've learned to pull back from these massive storms that destroy everything. That the story focuses so clearly on these characters and their smaller stories rather than everything going on in the world around them, that it has this epic feel and nature while being so focused utterly on these characters and their story. And I absolutely love that aspect of The Way of Kings. It's so focused and clear and easy to follow, and while it is a bit of a slow burn, there are parts of it where you're following Kaladin and he keeps getting put down and keeps getting put down and keeps getting kicked down and down and down and down. But the payoff at the end is utterly worth it. And from what I've read so far, I'm about halfway through the second book, it only gets higher from there. And that's what I love about The Way of Kings and the Stormlight Archive from what I've read so far. I know there are only 4 books out. I cannot wait to see everything else that comes, and I'll certainly be reading more Brandon Sanderson from now on. Yeah, those are my thoughts on The Way of Kings and the Stormlight Archive. And that's video 4 done. See y'all next week.